Hey everyone, this is me, the Undead Viking, and this giant box is War Titans, Invaders Must Die. This is a cooperative game in which each player will be playing a pilot of a giant mech, or titan as it's called, that is being tasked with fighting these giant evil invaders of many different sorts. There's ones that are aquatic, or amphibious I should say. There are mechanical ones. There are ones that kind of will remind you of dinosaurs, others that are like psionics and things like that. There's just a ton of them that are invading from this alternate dimension, and you have to destroy them. And along the way, not only do you have to, destroy, keep them at bay, but they'll just keep coming, right? I mean, they're just gonna, always be these rifts, these portals are just gonna be spitting them out each and every turn. And so what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to go and battle, go into these rifts, and then battle a rift master, if you will, and then close them down. And then only after you close all those rifts will you go on to the ultimate decision, the ultimate battle, and then win the game. As with any good cooperative, there are lots of ways to lose, and most of the time you feel like you just don't have enough time or enough power or enough ability to take care of things. And that's in my mind, that is what makes a cooperative fun, is when things are at their absolute worst and you need that one last big final die roll just to pull off the win, and you do or you don't, and you have a good story as far as the game is concerned. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. I'm kind of already talking about my final thoughts here. But let me show you a brief rundown of the game and how it's played, and then we'll come back here and we'll talk a little bit more about War Titans. Alright, cool. Alright, so this is War Titan. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you kind of what the process of a turn is, and I have set up a 4-player game. Now before I dive into the turn structure, let me just show you what you're looking at here. Alright, so as I've said, I'm playing a 4-player game, so I've chosen 4 of these Titans, and I've placed them on the board. Now, as far as their placement on the board, that's completely up to the players. If they just want to be in a certain location, that's where they are. And maybe this isn't the most optimal setup, but I just picked 4 places at random to try to determine. Now each one of these little hexagons here is a different city, and those are places that can be invaded by these monstrous invaders that are located on these, as I knock this guy over, on these 4 different rifts, and I'll talk about those rifts here in just a second. Now these cards up here, you probably might not be able to see them, but these are like the water cards or whatever for the different invaders, and each one of them has their information on the back as far as their powers and abilities. This is the reward for when you destroy them, and so it has certain things that happen. So when the Sea Lord is attacked, all amphibious invaders move 1 city towards him, so they move into group. And as you can probably guess, if you have more than one thing fighting, you're going to have difficulty in fighting them. You'll notice that there's this D1, D2, D3, and D4. Now, that is in reference to this chart up here. That's the DEFCON level of what's going on. Since this is a cooperative game, and a lot of cooperative games have this kind of a timing situation, as bad things happen, or as just time goes by, you're going to increase on this track as you go. If you ever reach the very end of the track, as you probably have guessed, at that point you will lose. That's not the only way you can lose. You could also lose if all 4 of the players or less players if you're not playing with 4 people, if all the Titans aren't on the board, they've been destroyed. You do get to come back. You aren't like taken out, but you are removed from the game board, and then the next turn you get to be placed on. But if there's ever a situation where none of you are on the board at once, then there's no defenders, and the invaders destroy the world. So I mean, there's other ways you can lose. I'll talk about how you can win in just a little bit, but the DEFCON level determines how powerful the creatures are. So, like here, the Sea Lord, DEFCON 1, he has 1 hit point, so 1 point of damage will destroy him, and he'll do 3 points of damage. Damage, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but basically damage is a set amount, and it's going to do that damage to the city that it's in. But if you happen to have either defenders or one of your Titans in that area, you can choose to have them take the damage instead. So it's just an option that you have. And as you can see, as you climb the ladder here, DEFCON 2, more hit points, and so on and so forth, until finally you have the DEFCON 4. He has 2 hit points, it does 4 damage, and you can see that he has immunity to certain types of damage. And depending upon the type of damage that your Titan does, you might not be able to affect them. And this is one of those games that I kind of like it. As time goes by, it just gets more and more tough to pull off a win. And so there is an economy of actions at the very beginning of the game where you're trying to, like, maybe perhaps, try to take care of stuff as quickly as possible, but then you have to seesaw with a little bit of build-up as far as like leveling up your Titans and getting new technology and things like that. So there's a nice little two-part situation going on there. Alright, so that's those things. There's this big deck of cards over here that are called the episode cards. You're going to be drawing those to kind of have like basically what happens on that particular turn. And I'll show that when we get into handling each turn. Now, I should mention that at the very beginning of the game, you will be handed a Titan at random. The Titans just have, like a picture. They have their stats here. I'll go over those here in just a second. And then you also are going to get 2 of these pilot cards. And then you just pick one of the 2, like here's Kevin Bright and Shomari. And so then, as you can see, they have special abilities. So when you defeat an invader, you can choose not to gain the reward. Instead, roll a die. If you get those results, regain your final blow. And I'll explain final blow here in a second. This ability can be used once per game turn. Kevin Bright, after the episode card is resolved, choose another Titan and give it a +1 bonus to one of its abilities among these types of abilities. And the iconography is a little small, but once you get used to it, you are going to know what's going on. So you just pick one of the pilots and you discard the other one. It is possible that your pilot will get killed, which is bad. Anytime that you have a Titan destroyed, and not necessarily will kill the pilot, you'll roll a die and see if they survive. But if you lose a Titan, your DEFCON goes up by 1, but if you also lose the pilot, it goes up another one. It's kind of a double whammy for a loss there. Alright, so just going to show you, like, here is, Marshall Jaguarion. You can probably guess where this guy came from. But, and that's something I kind of like, too. It doesn't really try to, hide the fact that it is obviously representing, like, some wonderful cartoons and movies and things that we've seen before. So I don't mind the fact that they've kind of borrowed that fairly liberally, and then here's like the Seraphim, the Heaven Breaker, and like, I like this guy, Demon Goat, K, and things like that. These things are just kind of neat to me. And you'll notice that there's the cockpit where you'll be placing your pilot when you get it, and then there's different locations for head, core, tools, and then hands. And then as you get technology, you'll be having that. Then there is your like final blow ability there. And so like here, like these 2, they actually have cards that represent the tech that they'll use for their final blow, like a giant energy blade or the great rocket fist, which are cool and all, but like some of them are just written on there. When you roll a fist check, you can activate this final blow, and so you can just go through the whole process of doing more damage. You know, but of course, usually using a final blow comes with some sort of a price, if you will. So you just have to, like in this case, if you use it, you have to skip your upgrade phase of that particular turn. So, you know, just something to think about. But I do like that you get a bunch of these to start with. I mean, the one that I have 7 of these, so you definitely have a lot of different choices. There's a lot of different pilots as well, so you can definitely mix and match and have some fun with it. Pretty cool. So, when you're playing the game, the very first thing that'll happen on the first turn of the game is you're going to draw 1 episode card. Let me just draw an episode card here. And this episode card, so you read the everything. You read like the little story. What's your problem? Why won't you die? They regenerate their flesh. Get back. Never. We'll never see who dies first. Bring it on. Remove all damage tokens from East Rift invaders. So there are, you know, as you can probably guess, East, West, South, and North Rift invaders. And then it says, if no damage has been removed this way, East Rift invader invades Tokyo. So it's telling us to invade somebody. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the top one, because there's the 1 and a 1, and then 2, 2, and then 3. So you have all these different ones. So you're going to take, and these are represented by the numbers on there, and I'll show you that in a second. So you're going to invade Tokyo. Kaboom! Like so. And so now that since you've invaded Tokyo, you know, I'm going to go ahead, and these are the whoops, wrong ones. These are the mechanized ones, and so that person is Trader Zacharias, a mechanical invader. And so we look at the other side, and we see he does damage too. Whenever you invade into a city, I should mention this just right now. Whenever you invade into a city, you automatically do 1 point of damage. So you're just going to go ahead and put a point of damage on the city when it does that. The green cities are called refuge cities, and those have 5 hit points, and the other cities have 4 hit points. They're metropolises, and they have 4 hit points. Whenever a city is destroyed, you guessed it, you raise 1 on the DEFCON level. And so if you just look at Zacharias, when you enter the city where Trader Zacharias is on, he deals 1 damage that can't be prevented to your Titan. So he just automatically does a point of damage. And you can see he has different abilities or whatever. And so once they come into play, you can kind of like keep that close to the board or whatever and have that done. Now, the other thing is that now, the very first time in a 4-player game that this happens, that one invades, you're going to draw 2 more that are, and you're not going to look at the text on the cards at all, but you are going to, you know, process the invasion of what happened. And so, and the way you do that is you just look at the bottom, and it tells you where the invasion comes. So, City of London, and you can read that, City of Beijing. So this is kind of neat. We got a guy in Beijing, and so, you can see the blue line hooks this area to here. So we're going to go ahead and invade again with that. And remember, invasion damage is 1, so we're just going to go ahead and apply 1 to the city because it's landed there. And then now we're going to have 1 invade London. And so London is here, and we're attached over here. And so we're going to go ahead and take this guy and place him there, and invade like so. Now I want to point out one thing. These guys will move around the board once they destroy a city, and also they can, you know, be convinced to move like different powers and abilities. And this might be tough to see, but you're going to see these different arrows on here, like a yellow arrow and a green arrow, and they're going to be pointing in different directions as far as like where when an invader leaves the area, where they'll be headed in that particular case. Now the way it works is that the invaders will always move in the direction of the yellow arrow unless it is telling them to go to a city that has been destroyed. If the city's been destroyed, then obviously then they will just take the green arrow instead. The only invaders that will move, however, are ones that, as I said, have already destroyed the city that they're on, or they've moved into a city that has been destroyed. On the first turn of the game, they won't move, however. Alright, so now that we've got everything set up, what we do is at the beginning of the opening phase, there's five phase, or 5 different phases of each round. And the first one, at the beginning of the opening phase, you draw the episode card, which I already did, and you resolved it. And then after you resolve that, you're going to go ahead and raise DEFCON by 1. You're always going to raise your DEFCON by 1 each and every turn. That's just the way it works. You really can't prevent it. So after you raise it by 1, then you're going to go ahead and do invader movement. Now, if any of these things were on a destroyed city, like in this case, this one, he would, because he's in, like, let's say he had destroyed Tokyo, he would take the yellow arrow and he'd move down to Hong Kong, and then you start rampaging down there. But as I said, we aren't going to do any movement at the very beginning. So then we're going to have invasion. So this is the step where now the invaders will swarm and they'll wreak havoc. The lead character, and you can, the lead is just the first person that's going to act in that particular turn. Oh, and I just realized I didn't do one thing. If you, like, we got that card that said we removed, like, all of the invaders from, like, we would remove the damage, and then we would have placed, we move on to invade Tokyo. We also use this card to do the invasion as well, and this card has one that invades Beijing. So, this part is being destroyed, because now we're going to go ahead and take another invader and place it in Beijing, and so now there's actually, he's dealing with several different things going on there, and so let's just go ahead and add another damage as well. So right from the get-go, this would be one of those beginnings that seem to always happen whenever I play one of these types of games, is that, like, everything seems to go bad right away. So, you know, there's that going on. So, okay, so now we've got all of our invaders going, and so now we're going to go ahead, and each person's going to take their turn to go ahead and move their respective Titan, and hopefully they can engage in some combat. Now, there's lots of things you can do. Obviously, you can just move to a spot where there's things going on. You can fight as far as in those locations. You can also, if there's nothing to fight, you can actually challenge, like you can challenge the invaders that are parts of different rifts and try to get them to, they can come down and fight you. And of course, you're inviting them to land in the city, and they then will, you know, destroy parts of the city, but you can invite them down. The whole point is that you want to take these guys out, because you want to clean out the rift, and then you want to, if you clean out the rift, then you can go into the rift and try to defeat the challenge that's there to close it down. And once you can close all 4 of the rifts, then you can do the final challenge and try to win the game. So on your turn, what you get to do is you get to move a number of spaces that is equal to the move rating of your particular Titan. So let me see here, and let's just go ahead and check the move rate of, let's see, who do we have? I believe this guy, if I remember correctly, is our friend Marshall Jaguarian. So if we look at him, we can see that, you know, his move rating is 2, and so we're going to go ahead and we're going to move him, you know, and get over here to London, so maybe we can do battle with that particular invader that's there. So he's got 2 movement, so we'll just go ahead and move there. We'll go 1, and we'll go 2. And so now, let's go ahead and find that amphibious particular bad invader dude. We'll look at what his abilities are. And he is the Empyrean Beast, and he's the Amphibian Invader. So if we look on the other side, what we see is that if we attack him, we remove all deployed supports in his city and in the adjacent ones. Now, supports are little tiny mechanized troops, and I'll show you some of these. Now, we haven't placed any yet because we haven't got to that point where we can actually purchase them and use them, but here these are. What these are is that basically they can suck up damage. You're going to be placing them in different locations. They each have 2 hit points, and you can place them in areas where if the invaders are going to be doing damage to the city, you can prevent that by putting those in there. So, but we're in a situation now where, you know, we don't have to worry about that effect because we're going to go ahead and attack. So we have, this is going to be fairly easy because he's only got 1 hit point. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and look at our fighting ability. Is a 4. You see that fist there? And there's those 2 dice reactions there. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 4 dice. We're going to roll them. And we're going to hope we get some of those results. Let's see what we get here. Alright. So I know I got one at least because here this is an effect that is good. And also actually all 4 of the dice turned out good because you'll notice that all 4 of those are good, active. Now, 1 point of damage will destroy the Empyrean Beast. So what happens then is that they go into their lair, which would be right there. Now, that's 1 point. I have 3 points left. If there was another one in there that I could fight, I could actually move the remaining damage over into that. But I can't do that at this point because, well, obviously there's nothing else left to fight. But I do get 1 credit because it's the level 1 that I've destroyed. I get 1 credit that I can use later to purchase tech if I get enough. Or the credit can be used for other things as well. That would be 1 action. Another player would take an action. Another player would take an action, and so forth. If you are in a spot where there's no creatures and you want to, you can go ahead and do what's called a combat repair. Then because each one of these titans have on them like a little wrench icon, same deal. He's got 2 dice. You'd roll those, and those successes would be those particular icons on the dice. And then you could use those to either repair yourself or, you know, to re-enable tech that you have or what have you. So you don't have to either, you know, you don't have to fight or taunt one of the invaders out to attack you or anything like that. That's not what you have to do. Now, if you have a situation where let's say these are out here fighting, or maybe they've been destroyed and taken to the lair. And I should mention with the lair, what happens with the lair is that after you defeated the ones on the rift, they go to the lair. But if a card would call for an invader that isn't located on, there are none left on the rift, you then go to the lair and pull them back and draw them in. And as more of these are destroyed, you will like push these further down the rows like so on the layer. And so finally you get one over down to the end, and then they're going to pop out next time you're going to draw one. So that's how you keep replenishing those. But anyway, so if we were on this location and we wanted to, like this particular rift has been emptied, and now we can challenge the rift. And the way you do that is on your like action phase, what you do is you say you're challenging it, and then you turn it over. And there are multiple of these, so you don't know which ones they're going to be used. You're going to have, so here's, you go through the 2 parts of the trial. So the first part of the trial, this one is dealing with Uriel without having fully understood the true essence of tyrants is madness. Obtain at least 6 successes in a combat check, otherwise you suffer 3 damage and go back to the game board. If you have a rift token, the success needed to override the trial drop to 3. So if you already destroyed a rift and you had a rift token, you'd have a better chance of this. So that's the first part. You got to roll and get a bunch of those successes and do it. So like you probably would need tech that would increase your fighting skills to get to a point where you have at least 6 dice, and then you'd have to get those successes. And then a fight. Roll a fist check. If you score at least 3 successes, defeat Uriel. Otherwise, your Titan takes 5 damage, and the fight goes on till next turn. And so the first thing you do is you're there, and then if you defeat that, you go to there, and then if you defeat that, then you destroy it. And then you win. So, and then you just remove this particular, you remove the disc from the board, showing that particular rift has been destroyed. And because of the fact that you destroyed the rift, you're going to get an artifact. So let me see if I can find Uriel's artifact here. And Yeah, there we go. So there's bioevolution. So you get this very, very powerful God's first thought was an angel, God's second thought was man, God's thought now is only one. And so then the special ability is by studying the shape of Uriel, your Titan bio-evolves. Each time you defeat an invader, place 1 damage token on this card. If there's at least 6 tokens on this card, you gain 1 automatic success in each ability roll. So you know these things, for defeating the rifts are very, very powerful, and you know, getting them and making sure that, you know, hopefully like each person can get one will, you know, help your chances very much in like winning the game in its entirety. So all right, so that's what you can do on that part of the phase, and then finally you can do the upgrade phase, which is then those credits that you've earned through battles. You can use that. There are 3 tech cards always available. If you buy one, you get to replace it from the tech deck. If and you can also, you know, spend credit to wipe the 3 that are available and draw 3 brand new ones. And these, you know, will have a price on them and a location and an effect that they'll have. So, you know, like here's the Psionic Pulse. It goes in the head. Discard this tech card. 1 invader on a city loses all of their special abilities this turn. A plasma gun, very straightforward. It tells you what type of damage it does. Remember, there's certain ones that'll be immune to certain damage. Just good to know. And it gives you +2 on your combat, and it costs 2 over there. Then Jet Booster. You know, +1 movement for charge spent this turn. This tech card doesn't gain charges and gets discarded when it reaches 0 charges. And so they can be, you know, like combat or special abilities and what have you. And purchasing tech is something you need to do, because you have to upgrade your Titans in order to, obviously, to defeat some of the larger combats and larger things that you're going to have that go on. So alright, so let's say you finish off all 4 of the rifts. So then what's going to happen is that you're going to draw one of these 4 final episode, and these have a little narrative that you have here that everybody's going to read, and then on the back side they will have a story process that you're going to have to go through, and everybody's going to have to work together to defeat it. And if you can pull that off, then and only then will you defeat the invaders and actually win the game of War Titan. You know, this is something that just it's everything that I want it to be in a co-op game. I have a cool theme. I have awesome minis and things to look at. I got a narrative that's going on, and once you get a turn or 2 done, the process of the turn is second nature. Everybody kind of knows the flow, and you can kind of let the rules fall away, and you can just kind of enjoy the story that the game is telling you. But it's just fantastic, and it's a lot of fun. But let me tell you about all of that and more in my final thoughts. Alright, thank you very much for taking the time to watch the how-to. I know I said it was going to be brief, but there's a lot of stuff going on. I wanted you to have a good idea of how the game is played. Now, this game definitely does stand on the shoulders of co-op giants. You know, anything with dudes on a map, things on a map, things moving on a map. You know, there's lots of different cooperatives that have that going on. You know, Arkham Horror, Eldritch Horror, even Pandemic, you know, to a certain degree, although this is way more, you know, thematic and Ameritrashy, if you will, than a Pandemic game is. So, you know, and I've always liked games that have like the different pathings and things like that, where the monsters follow different paths or whatever. Your assailants or the thing that you need to destroy. Because then you can kind of process, you know, what's going to happen with each of the creatures, and then you can kind of, you know, plan out your turns or whatever. And I think that's like a big thing for co-ops for me, is that when everybody at the table is discussing what they're going to be doing the next turn and what their process is, and that's something I really, really like about War Titans, because it enables that. Each Titan or mech. I like, I played a lot of BattleTech when I was younger. I remember getting up really early in the morning to watch Robotech, the cartoon, on WGN. It was like on at 6 a.m. or something like that every weekday. And I remember getting up really, really early for school just so I could watch that. And I've always liked the idea of the big giant robot, right, that a person controls. But so I'm supposed to call them Titans, but I always just, I refer to them as battle mechs. But anyway, regardless. So, like, each mech has its own special abilities and powers. Some are better at defense, some are better at attacks. And you have to, kind of play to your strengths, if you will. But I think the game also shines a little bit when you are forced into a situation where you can't play to your strengths anymore, and you have, because desperation calls. You need to, you got to take a shot. You got to see if you can, like, the defender version, battle mech is being forced into combat and has to give it like a really, really good roll to succeed. Stuff like that. I like when you have those things going on. But regardless, my point is that each player kind of fills a role or fills a niche, if you will. And each one is, like the old saying, it's like the sum of the parts is stronger than each one individually. Like you as the team, you're a much stronger team when you work together and you play to each person's strengths. Now, I've always said, if you watch my videos, there's as far as cooperative games go, there's some criteria that I always go by. One, the game has to beat me the first time I play it. I'm going into a game completely blind. I don't know how it works. I don't know what the strategies are. I don't know what the cards say. I don't know any of those things. If it doesn't beat me the first time, I get a little worried, because I want a cooperative game to kind of grab me by the throat and not give me a chance. I love getting destroyed the first few times you play, so when you do defeat it, you actually feel pretty good about yourself, right? So, yes, this one kicked my butt. My daughter and I got destroyed the first time we played it. And we played it again, we got destroyed again. And then, the following weekend, my daughter and I and a couple of my friends played, and the four of us were able to eke out a win. It was one of those things where it was like the last turn. It could have gone either way, right? We're way up on the DEFCON chart. It was one of those things where I think we had 2 spots left, so we had to make sure that nobody was destroyed, because that would have increased it. And so yeah, we ended up 2 spots away from losing the game, and we pulled off the win, and that was good, right? We're high-fiving each other and having fun. So there, it's tough, and I like that. 2, does it eliminate the one-person general problem? Well, as I said, each person kind of has their own role and has their own abilities, and they play to their strengths, and I like that about the game. Admittedly, that is something that is fostered a little bit by just a gaming group. If you have one person that has a big, strong force of personality, they can kind of direct people to do what they do, and then of course they might as well just be playing solo. But a lot of games, unfortunately there's games out there that kind of enable that. Like they put somebody into the role as leader, so that's the person that tells people what to do. So the narrative kind of creates that. I don't like that. I want everybody to feel like they're contributing, and I want everybody to feel that their opinion and their ideas are just as important or valuable as anyone else's. So, and I don't have a situation where one person falls into the co-op general mode. Now, and the final thing kind of ties into the first one, and that is all things being the same. If I play a normal game that's co-op, competitive, and there's 4 of us, and we're all equally have equal ability, then I should win 1 out of 4 times, right? I mean, that's just the way the game should shake out. I should only win a co-op about 1 out of every 4, 1 out of every 3 times. Even if I know exactly what I'm doing, even if I've got a really good grasp of the tactics behind it and the strategies behind it, the luck of the dice or the randomness of the cards or what have you, should defeat me anyway. And it should bring me back for more. I don't want to play a game on easy mode, right? I want to play it, and I want it to be tough, and I want me feel like winning achieves me something. And this one, as I said, is tough, and the wins are earned, if you will. So there, it passes my co-op game test, if you will. Now, everything else is gravy for me. I mean, I like these games, as I said, with the pathing. I really, really enjoy all the miniatures. I like the narrative of it. I like the idea of me piloting a giant mech. You know, it's one of those games where it has so many cool parts about it that, you know, I just found myself just really, really enjoying it. Really, really looking forward to my turn of, like, going into battle or setting myself up for a later turn or buying a cool piece of tech or purchasing, you know, some of these little tiny dudes and putting them on. Like, I think I forgot to mention this, but, like, these cost 2 credits. And so, like, you know, one of those things where it's like, you know, I can't make it over there in time, but I need to place some of these poor hapless guys down to take some damage on that city so they can prevent it from happening. And there's lots of times when people can sacrifice themselves, too. Like, I'm going to take the damage so the city isn't destroyed, that kind of thing. You know, because, you know, cities being destroyed, like the big green refuge ones, I mean, those are really bad for DEF CON and things like that. So there's moments of great narrative shine that I really, really enjoy. And this is the kind of game that you tell stories about, like the one final big die roll, or just like how, oh man, the beginning of that game we were just getting destroyed, but somehow we hung on and put it together, and we were able to win the game, you know, like 2 hours later. And it's like, it's stuff like that like you reference stories like that like years later when you mention games, and I've already got some really, really awesome stories about War Titans. So there you go. If you like co-op games, if you like co-op thematic games, I strongly suggest you check this one out. I think you will enjoy it a great deal. If you have any questions about the game, by all means ask away. I'll be happy to answer those as best as I can. As always, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. And until next time, I'm the Undead Viking, and I'm going to tell you to have yourself one heck of an awesome day. Right.